Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Hannah. I use they, them pronouns. I am based in Oakland, California, Huchin, Ohlone land. And something that brought me joy as a child was the geese that would return to the field across from our home every winter. And we'd wake up and they'd be singing and we'd know that they were back. Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So just to set some expectations for our time together today or this evening, our call is going to be scheduled for 90 minutes and it will be recorded. It's already being recorded for the many members who are not able to join so that they can watch the kickoff later. And it'll also be there for you to return to and reflect on later if you want to. So we are practicing moving slowly. Breaks are anticipated, but please take yours freely if you need one. And we'd like to save questions for the end, but welcome you to put them in the chat and we will return to them. And then we just want to make space for Zoom fatigue. It's 2022, so do what you need to stay comfortable and to be present during this time. So as our agenda, just a brief overview, we'll begin with a grounding in place, and then we will briefly recap why we are transitioning. So really what inspired this call, as well as what we heard from you during this transition process. And then from there, we will shape our proposal. We will share our proposal that we are shaping for where we go from here, as well as what comes next. So then we're going to have time for that Q&A. So just a reminder, please put them in the chat if you have any questions as they come up. And then we're going to have both small and large group discussion spaces to reflect on the transition together. And we're going to do our best to close by 6:30 in 90 minutes or so. Great. So we acknowledge it's Friday. Everybody's probably had a big week. So we're just going to take a deep breath in and out together to ground us and to begin. So on the screen, we're zooming out, zooming way out from your day, from your week, and recognizing, just taking a moment for anything that may be weighing you down and just letting it float away as if we were in space together. Just float away. Recognizing anything from the week that brought you joy and holding on to that solar light. We're going to come back to Earth, the place where we all are together, no matter how far we are apart. Our beautiful blue planetary ecosystem that is our shared home. And we're going to zoom in even further to the land that many of us reside on, known today as North America, but a place known by indigenous peoples across the continent as Turtle Island since time immemorial. So we're looking down on Turtle Island at Earth's life-giving waters from above, and what is seen here is a mosaic of colors and textures and watersheds. And we're zooming in again to the watersheds of California, with our watershed here in the Bay Area, beginning at the peaks of the Southern Cascades and the Sierra Mountain Ranges, and flowing into the Central Valley toward the Pacific and the Sacramento and San Joaquin Rivers. Coming together at the Bay Delta before meeting the salty waters of the Pacific Ocean. And People Power Solar Cooperative was founded here in the East Bay city of Oakland, California. And it is here in this grounded place where many of us are joining from today. And these are also the occupied lands of the Ohlone people in the unceded territory of the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. And at People Power, we believe that all land is Indigenous land and that the foundation of regenerative economies must be rooted in the rematriation of land to Indigenous peoples. So to close this part of our grounding, we'll now listen to a land acknowledgement from Chairperson Karina Gold of the Socorro-Tay Land Trust.
Horshetuhi ka'at lashanka ka'at ra'at Karina. Good day, everyone. I'm the chairperson for the Confederated Villages of Lashawn. One of our many territories is Huichin, and Huichin is inclusive of 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Alameda, Berkeley, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. We're here today to welcome you, and one of the things that we do as a welcoming is to let us begin to think about where we're at and whose land we're on. No matter what land you're on in what is now called the United States, it's stolen land. Our ancestors have been here since the beginning of time, dealing with 3 different colonizations, with the most recent one with the United States still on unceded stolen land. Our ancestors have been here since the beginning of time. When we did welcomings before, when people would come to the edge of our sites, or the lands that we took care of, they would wait to be welcomed in. And when they would be welcomed in, we would be welcomed with food and laughter and song and gifts. Today, we cross many people's territorial boundaries without thinking of whose land we're on. I invite you today to find out whose land that you're on. What's the name of the tribe, the name of the territory, the language that's spoken? I invite you to work with the tribal people on whose land you are on, or people that you work with. I ask you today to come into this space and place, recognizing that you're a guest on the traditional homelands of the Lashawn people.
Wonderful. So just a reminder that acknowledgements are not reparations, and if you are a non-Indigenous person living in the San Francisco East Bay, we invite you to pay the Sh'umi land tax to Segurite Land Trust, and I've just dropped a link to that for more information in the chat. Oh, and I see Brandy's here. Oh, how exciting. Oh, great. So we are also making space to, oh, uh, together. There she is. I hear you, Brandy. Let's just pass it off to you.
Oh my goodness, give thanks. I was like Crystal said, there was something. I'm just in this breath mode, and I just want to give thanks for our breath, every single person here. And I give thanks for the Miwok territory that I'm stewarding at this time, understanding that as I steward land, that my lineage was brought and forced here to then work this land as slaves, to build as what we call now Wall Street. And I remind folks, from cotton fields to Wall Street. And so as we understand, as my dear sister Corinne says, I welcome you and say Habari Gani, which is let's pull together. Habari Gani, let's pull together. And as we pull together, it'd be remiss if we didn't give love and ashe to our ancestors. And in my tradition, as I carried it, my ancestors all the way through this middle passage here, we pour libation. And so as we, Habari Gani, right? Right? What's the news? Harambe! See, let me say, Habari Gani is what's the news? Write that down. Somebody call you, say, what's the news? And they say, Harambe! Harambe. That's pull together.
Harambe.
Harambe! Right?
Harambe.
Come on now. And so, but we have to, before we keep going, if I can, in the room, in our cooperative, ask for the oldest person here to give me a thumbs up. Now, this is going to age some people. If you feel like you're the oldest and you're hanging out with some young ones, put your thumb up and give us the ashe to keep on going so that we can pour our libations for our ancestors. And when I say pour libations, we all know that we come from Earth, Mama. I got this plant here if y'all can see. So we're going to use this here, and our ancestors are those who have come before us, the ones who have worked the soil. We are the answer to their wildest dreams, because we on this call talking about some cooperative energy as a verb. We're here doing that. So we want to ground, as we understand, on this stolen land, work by enslaved people, not slaves, enslaved people, that we'd like to make sure we pour our libations for all those ancestors, y'all, because there's many of us, but really we're one. Mycelium, we're connected. If you didn't know, you better go put your hands in the soil. I'm just going to tell you. So I am just going to open this up, and I want to pour libations for my grandfather. And I'm going to invite you to put it in the chat, say it out loud if you're somewhere. And as I pour back thus call into those radical ancestors that have cooperativized already and knew to be in this room with us so that we can do this. Let's bring them on in. I'm going to call in
Grandpa.
Ashe.
Ashe. Rosa Parks, it's her birthday today.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. I bet you the chat is filling up. If you're calling it out, that's great. Bring them in. This is so important. We anchor with this Ashe. This means, and so it is, amen, however you want to do it, and it's done. I bring in Fannie Lou Hamer.
Judy
Ashe.
Bari. Alexander.
Ashe.
Hannah Sullivan. Mamita.
Grizzly Bugs.
Ashe.
Ashe. See folks in the chat, you can feel free to type in chat and unmute yourself.
And even if you got a chat, call it out, because you should say their name. Say their name.
Adrian.
Don't just write it.
F. Stone, great.
Feliciano.
Judy Berry.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Ashe.
Yeah. Ashe.
Christine Weaver.
Ashe.
I feel them. My back got straighter.
I can't pronounce the one that Colin just put in. Titch.
Bell Hooks.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. I love it. I want to anchor this with 3 Ashes if we can. You write it in the chat. We're going to anchor it with 3. That powerful number. We'll talk about that later. Okay. Ashe.
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 Ashe. Oh.
Ashe.
I give thanks.
Give thanks for that so much. So we are here feeling so grounded, I hope. And we're here today because
big up, Brandy. Thank you.
Yes. Give thanks. We're here today because building a future beyond PG&E and private utilities requires that we change the ways our cooperative organize together. So here's a recap of why we're transitioning. People Power Solar Cooperative was established to convince policymakers to implement community solar policies in California by showing them that communities, all of us and more, our communities do want and can own and shape our energy systems rather than needing private utilities or corporations to do it for us. We call this model the Commons model because it was intended to put privately owned roofs into the commons for the communities by providing a framework for us, including renters or even unhoused people, if they want to form project groups who could then pool money to build cooperatively owned energy project. The model then leveraged this policy called net energy metering, we call NEM, to generate dividend returns that are redistributed back to the cooperative. As we work to implement the Commons model, we began to understand 3 things that created a barrier to organize autonomous project groups. The first thing is, unlike land or housing, energy is an intangible commodity and is rarely considered outside of receiving monthly energy bills. So if you don't understand it, how do you control it? Number 2, we have been positioned as consumers. So our relationship to energy is primarily financials. How do we take control if we're just somebody who buys stuff? The third one, there's a very limited systemic understanding of the technical and political energy structure in place right now. So how do we take it over? How do we build it better if we don't know that? Because of these three barriers, we were not able to organize autonomous project groups that could build revenue generating projects at scale, as the Commons model was originally intended to do. Instead, what ended up happening was general owner shares were invested without organizing project groups to co-govern, to develop energy projects, or to co-govern the projects. We end up keeping the skills and knowledge and relationships that's required to do these things centralized and limited to the worker owners, rather than advancing energy democracy together. At the same time, it really put the workers owner in the position of both working in place of the project group, as well as needing to maintain the operations and income of the cooperative. It's literally like operating two different organizations at the same time. And as you can imagine, this is not a sustainable model, which is why our 2022 transition is designed to be achievable, sustainable, and can build real power with you, all of us. Despite these challenges, People Power now owns and operates 3 revenue-generating solar projects that will provide dividend returns over the life of the system. And I see on the call, we got Laura Jo, we got Neil. I don't know if Neil, your family's here, and we haven't actually been able to onboard Lena yet, but we got 2 subscriber owners on the call with us. We have 3 revenue generating projects working with these 3 wonderful partners who are also our member owners. We're in community together. And most of you joined as we're organizing around the last 2 projects. So if you're curious why it took so long to build them, feel free to drop in chat and we can discuss them over the Q&A. Throughout this whole process, you have any questions, drop in chat. Once we get to the Q&A, we'll answer them. These projects, all these 3 projects, will be providing 1 to 3% dividend return to all of us. Depending on the NEM 3 outcomes, that 1 to 3% might change, but it will be within the 1 to 3% range. The NEM 3 outcome may impact the existing project, we don't know yet. And over the process of building these projects, we came to understand that energy policies created for and administered by the utilities will never support the redistribution of their wealth to our communities. And what that means also is that solar is not a silver bullet solution, but rather a tool for advancing a just transition. So we need to focus on the people now instead of the technology. And that focus so much on the policy as well. If we continue to focus so much on the policies created for and administered by the utilities, we may be too focused on saving something that is not ultimately going to save us. So the question that we're going to keep asking ourselves is, how do we then use every moment that we have together to activate a shared understanding of what will require to realize our shared vision? All of us know a whole lot individually. If we put our heads together, we can figure a lot of things out. So what would it require to realize that shared vision for that energy economy that will actually meet our needs? All the while strengthening relationship as a community. How can we view these so-called fights, something that we can build strength together? So this is where we are today. And while we don't know exactly what kinds of project we're going to invest moving forward, we do know that they must be community-led. And since we know that a major barrier of organizing energy project is an understanding of the energy system in place today, we are creating tools for transition, tools to expand access to the skills and knowledge that's needed while creating a clear process for organizing and activating members. That's you, that's me, that's all of us around stewarding project groups with your communities. So in an essence, we're creating tools to build a culture of cooperation together. We've already invested a lot of time and energy envisioning what this looks like with many of you over the past years as a cooperative. So that's not something we'll change. We will continue to foster a culture of cooperation. Now, let's take a moment to visualize that dream together. Share what a culture of cooperation means to you on a word cloud. We got word cloud coming right here, waiting for us. We have a word cloud, and there should be in chat. Hannah will be dropping. There you go. There's a chat. Menti.com/bunch of code. If you click on it, there'll be 3 boxes where you can say, what does a culture of cooperation mean to you? You don't have to do all 3, just 1 is fine too. Follow the instruction here, and then you'll see your answers popping up on the screen as a word cloud. I see listening, love, values, culture of cooperation. Distributing power. You know, they say distribution of knowledge is distribution of power. The concentration of knowledge is a concentration of power. Slowness, culture of cooperation. Can't leave anyone behind. Sharing. Ooh, we got a clear winner, big commonality here, not winner, commonality. Shared word. We're all winners. Sharing, educating, organizing. The possibility is endless. Do you know that for hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors have been in the culture of cooperation? And a few hundred years that we're in right now is only probably, we actually calculated is 0.03% of human lifetime. What we're experiencing right now is only 0.03% of human lifetime. The culture of cooperation is the majority of what we are as a DNA of humans. And what does that look like? It's decolonizing or re-indigenizing, remembering our relationships, collaborating, camaraderie, adapting, more information, openness to evolving. The only constant is change. Do we have anyone else who are still typing? Oh, more coming in. Oh, this is so exciting. Community. So I see we have some shared words. Oh, I see roots. This is exciting. We got to remember where we come from in order to keep going forward. So 3 shared common words that's been used among us is sharing, community, listening, mutual aid, solidarity, saying no. Oh, we got more coming in. This is fun. Anti-racism, equity. Does that feel like the future you want to live in? Yes, Lisa. Yes, and how about we imagine, instead of thinking about how can we get there, how do we be there right now? In the present. Thank you, Bruce. How do we be there right now? It's something that we really love to move into. So with that, if folks feel complete on this, we're going to move. Thank you, Jim, music. And we're going to have more music later. Oh boy, this is so exciting. Care is another thing that I see that I didn't see before. Joy, freedom. All right, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts. And we continue to listen. We've been listening a whole lot. We're gonna jump right back to share what we heard too from you all.
Yeah, so excited to see listening and community up there, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about now, is how we listened to you all as our community. And yeah, because at our core, we are cooperative, and we have been committed to ensuring that your feedback and insight was and will continue to be a key component of navigating this transition together. And so here's how we engaged with the community and what we heard from you. And first of all, we're just so grateful to everyone who joined the office hour sessions and who responded to emails and texts or just gave us a call. We've been carefully documenting what you've shared in these sessions and in previous surveys in a digital space that now has over 320 sticky notes documenting quotes directly from all of you. And one thing that was exciting before I move on is I just want to celebrate that we did reach a 90% response rate. So we have heard from 90% or more. Actually, I think in real time, Crystal says that we're above 90. So we really just are so grateful that all of you have been engaged in this process, because there is so much going on right now. Sorry, thanks. I'm ready to move on. I threw that in. But here's what we heard from you. So a few things are really loud and clear. In particular, what you need from us in general, or just to engage with the cooperative or energy systems as a whole. So the first is tools and resources are needed to better understand how our energy system works today before we can engage in changing it, which entirely makes sense. We need processes to practice organizing and co-governance so that we know where to start. And this is really echoed by the need for clear and accessible pathways to engage with the cooperative. And it all ties to this need for more capacity to engage with people power amidst an ever more demanding world. And so how do we create that so that we can have what we have also heard so clearly, which is that building tangible alternatives to PG&E must remain a key strategy of the cooperative because it is core to why so many of you joined, and it makes the shared vision of the future that we are working toward a reality today. And side note, if you're interested in seeing the quotes we gathered around these points, they're going to be in the appendix of the presentation, and which will be shared with the recording so you can actually see what folks said after the fact, because there's a lot of them. So after hearing from you and listening, the question, of course, is where are we going to go from here? And so we have applied this feedback and the lessons learned over the last 3 years to creating a renewed theory of change for how we will move forward together. And we're going to talk about that now, because we recognize that to build a future beyond PG&E and other private utilities, we must begin co-creating and implementing those alternatives today, and that these alternatives are necessary to ensure that the power to live can be accessed by all without compromising the health and safety of any community and advanced in right relationship with the planet and each other. So let's just break it down. Core to our theory of change is providing a foundational understanding of the historical and present day racist extractive energy systems and structures that we seek to change. And what's more, Tools for Transition will meet those stated needs of People Power members by providing clear, accessible pathways to engage with us and changing the energy system, by providing tools and resources to understand energy and where we are today so that we can more effectively change it. Second is we recognize that the most amazing thing about the cooperative is the people, each and every one of you and the communities that you are a part of. Many of you already know so much about our energy system today and how to make lasting change. And so we might not know everything as individuals, but together we will develop a shared vision of the decentralized, democratized, and diversified energy systems that we can create together. And we will then provide a clear framework by which these visions can be tangibly implemented to meet the unique needs of each community by the community through project group organizing. And this is an updated framework so that we can ultimately foster a culture of cooperation that dismantles PG&E and other private utilities by building the future beyond them. So let's talk about what will change as we implement this transition.
Instead of hearing us read what's on the screen here, we really like to invite you to engage with us. You see these bullet points? If you feel moved to bring your voice in, please unmute and read a bullet point in popcorn style. I know there's going to be a little awkward stuff, but it's okay. We're moving together.
Our commitment to just transition will be in practice rather than a static statement.
Worker owners commit to creating clear pathways to engage so that each person can determine whether or not they have the capacity to participate and hold themselves and each other accountable to doing so.
We will pause general owner shares until there are organized project groups to invest in.
To engage with the cooperative, one no longer has to purchase shares. Anyone can engage with the educational content to gain a more systemic understanding of the energy system.
Rather than
we lost you, Margie. You're on mute.
Rather than investing to make money, the dividend model, we are offering an investment in cooperatively led alternatives to the current system.
Worker owners will limit their focus on developing projects and will instead focus on providing the tools and resources for members to organize themselves.
Thank you all. How does that sit with y'all? How does that feel? So we have prepared a Zoom poll to provide a vibes check and see how you're all feeling about what we've talked about so far. So let's get ready for 3 statements. What we're going to do is we're going to throw up 3 statements on how much you agree or disagree with them. So here's statement number 1. That should come out here. A future beyond PG&E and other private utilities feels achievable. There's no right or wrong answer. This is how you're feeling. Let's just checking in. We're not here looking for validation. We're here looking for how you're feeling. A future beyond PG&E and other private utilities feels achievable. Steve, so there should be like a pop-up poll somewhere on my end. I can't quite see what you all are seeing.
Yeah, it comes on right on the middle of the screen.
Thank you, yes, yeah.
Right above the presentation.
So 78%, saying, folks, you don't have to think too hard, just check in with your feeling. It's a vibes check. How does your body react to that statement? A future beyond PG&E and other private utilities feels achievable.
It's a test. Is it like right or wrong?
There's no right. Well, the right answer is your honest answer to your soul, your heart, and your body.
Yeah. So it's not pass or fail.
Okay, are we feeling? Yeah, there's no pass or fail. Well, if you're not being honest with yourself, that's definitely a big failure. I'm just kidding. There's no failure here. Okay, are we feeling good? I'm getting 81%. We have 6 more people. Maybe they just stepped away. If you need more time, give me a shout. Hearing none. Ready to see the results? I'm honestly a little surprised. Okay, here we go. This is what we have. So mostly leaning pretty hopeful, despite being in the middle of all the things that we're feeling pretty hopeful. This is really exciting. You ready for the next one? The next question we have is, I feel motivated to put my energy toward co-creating and implementing alternatives today, even if I'm not sure how yet. I feel motivated to put my energy toward co-creating and implementing alternatives today. Again, the only wrong answer is if you're lying to yourself. So see how we're feeling. And for those who are also moved, after you put in your vote, if you can put in chat, what moved you the most? Some keywords that you heard so far, or even felt so far, you can drop in chat. As Hannah and I said, this is a lot of listening, and every moment we have touching you through our voice, our skin, our words, your words, we're all taking them very seriously into bringing that on forward in the emergent process. So I'm only seeing 4 more people left. It's guessing it's about the same number of people as before. We're ready to close the poll. Hearing nobody stopping me. You ready to see the result? Okay. Here's the result. We're mostly leaning towards agree. We're seeing some disagreeing. So anything that moves you, anything that you have questions, especially if you have questions, please drop in chat, or when we get to Q&A, we'll love to answer and figure out how we can co-create together. If there's any barrier, how we can move through that. All right, ready for the last question? Not question, last statement. How do you feel about the last statement? The last statement we have, working together is the solution, and it's way more fun than working alone. This is anonymous, so you can be honest. If you don't like working together, it's fine too. Obviously, you get to choose who you want to work with. We got a few more coming in. It's like we're getting close to the engagement level as the last poll. If nobody is still working on it, if you're not unmuting yourself to tell me to stop closing the poll, I'm going to close the poll and share the result. This is our group here. So overall, we're feeling like agreeing that we should work together. There's one person who doesn't, and that's fine. We all have a different work style. And this is the people that we have in our space together and moving forward. Thank you for the little vibes check that we have here. Now, you get to decide how you want to be part of it. What's going to happen next? How do you want to build a culture of cooperation with us? First and foremost, sure, this is a question that many people are wondering. Where do you want your shares? As mentioned, we have built 3 revenue-generating solar projects that will be providing dividends return over the life of the system. We now own and control them. So you can choose to keep your money invested in those projects and collect dividends. You can also choose to contribute your money to work in the cooperative and use it for anything that will help us create alternatives to PG&E and private utilities. If you decide that People Power is not for you, your share can be returned and membership terminated. So next week, we'll be sending our February owner update with a member survey where you can tell us how you like your shares to be used. This would be a way to determine how you want to continue engaging. It is your money. It is your choice. Should you choose to contribute your shares to the cooperative, here's what they will support. It will go into providing the tools and resources for members to organize themselves, ourselves, through the creation of the tools for transition content. We also have a budget for you to create with each other and build community together. So this is kind of like our very high level budget. And we're looking at, for this whole year, we're raising $230,000 to be able to achieve everything that we've talked about so far. And we're happy to talk about the budget breakdown too. Again, you're a member owner. Everything we're doing is with you. And at the same time, we're also looking for members who have knowledge of or interest in the California water system. We're looking for folks who are interested in co-creating, co-conspirators for the tools for transition. So topics we're currently engaging in within the California water system includes the California water projects, dam removal, the Colorado River, and the Salton Sea. So if you know anyone or if you're excited about this topic, we'd love to be engaging with you. Also, language justice is necessary for a just transition. We're looking for support with translation of materials, especially if you have skills in Spanish language translation. We're also looking for disability justice practice partners to collaborate with us to ensure that disability justice is foundational to the energy solutions we choose to pursue. We're not here to build charity model. We're not here to build stuff to help other people. We're here to bring people in, to grow together, build that culture of cooperation so we can build that future that works for all of us. We're also looking for artists who can bring visions of our energy justice to life and folks to join us in holding space for a collective healing that works for, that this work really require. Okay, I'm sure you now have a whole lot of questions. And this is the time that we would like to engage with you.
Welcome back, folks. Seeing a couple more join. So we're just gonna debrief on our small group discussions now in the larger group. So I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself and open it up for folks to just share what you talked about or what you're feeling individually about the transition.
This is not
Big
a discussion.
group discussion.
Right, this is not to talk to us, this is talk to all of us. Imagine we're in a circle together.
Well, I was in a room with Margie and Lorraine, and overall there was a good amount of stoke about the transition, looking to what the future looks like outside of just thinking about technology and how we can link it to other aspects of work that we're interested in. On a tangential note, what I was really excited about was learning from Lorraine, who has been using recreation, camping specifically, as a means of learning how to use tools like solar to live off the grid. And when I'm thinking about the work that we do as a co-op and the battery collective, and the inevitable blackouts that are going to happen as wildfire season increases, I think a community like this is really great in being able to talk about how to reduce harm, prepare, and use tools like the solar and battery combos and things just to help one another and make sure that when the power goes out, our neighbors who are most vulnerable, who need to keep their medicine cold, who need to keep their technology going, are still able to survive. So I just love that framing of like a safe space for learning that's fun, to prepare for those times that might not be as fun.
Thank you, Solanette.
One thing that Stefan raised was how there's a lot of different folks in the cooperative that have, families, jobs, different commitments to their community and their life, and how sort of developing a range of different tasks, especially like smaller tasks for folks to get engaged with the new plan will be really important. And I think that's a really exciting exercise to imagine sort of all the different ways that the cooperative can engage its members in this new proposed strategy.
One of the things that came up in the room that I was in was just the appreciation for the level of engagement that has gone into communicating with the entire co-op about the transition. Also, to have that level of participation, I think you're in the 90 percentile. It's just really amazing. So great job on all the efforts there.
Great job on all of us for showing up.
I want to thank each of you for all the work you do. It's awesome and inspiring.
I just love that in the chat, during the Q&A session in chat, people asking about questions about energy system, and I can already think about people on this call that could be much better people at answering those questions, and even host a learning session, a strategy session there. It really shows the power of our community here.
Something that came out of our group was a little bit of a sense, I don't know how much was shared, that we did a lot of work building up structure that ended up not being out of proportion to the actual work and scope and scale of what was doable in the near term. And in some sense, it's good to see a cooperative venture being agile and able to adjust and react. But there's also the disappointment of, okay, no, so if not that, then what now? And glad to see some answers there.
I think one thing that kind of I got out of talking with my partner Steve, we're a two-person group, was just seeing how, a lot of the education component that I think we're talking about, I think is about facilitating, members of this group sharing their knowledge and perspectives with other people. I think Steve has some good perspective from a union perspective. He's a union member, and what some of the concerns were with a public grid compared to PG&E, with different kind of considerations for workers. And so, yeah, hopefully that in these educational spaces we can kind of share our collective knowledge, because I think that would be key for getting the tools to, develop our own projects. And I think that's one thing, I'd like to get out of, would like the group to get out of the educational space is learning, like, how do I run a project group or create one, or what's the life cycle of a solar project, and how to kind of learn some of those technical details could be cool moving forward, so people feel empowered to, develop their own group and project and get that organized themselves.
I'm curious to know how folks feel about. Oh, go ahead, Susan. Go ahead.
I said, nice to see you, Matt.
Thank you.
I am curious to hear how folks feel about when we talk about educational content, when we're learning from each other. Like, what are you envisioning? Because I don't want to assume what I'm envisioning is the same as what you're envisioning. And I may have learned what Hannah was envisioning was different from what I was envisioning. So curious to hear just from your stories, like, how would you like to absorb these content, especially when we're talking about like water and energy nexus? I mean, there's deep stuff, a lot of things that we don't even know what we don't know. What's the best way to engage? Is it like newsletter, like one direction coming from the staff, and then we like work with the right experts who are mostly our members, or some more decentralized spaces that people can share stuff, and obviously the staff will be producing things too. Obviously there's lots of different ways, but I just want to put it out here and see what folks are envisioning.
This is Erin.
Hi, Erin.
Can you hear me? Hi. So from a standpoint of what Matt just shared around how to develop projects, I could imagine kind of a guide of sorts. I think I've seen some of these guides before that People Powered Solar has created around kind of what it involves to, organize your community, raise the type of capital, develop a budget, the systems that Grayson put in place for assessing your roof and assessing the viability of a solar system on your roof. I think there's a lot of prior art there that the co-op already has built, and maybe it's just, more literacy that making sure everyone has access to that. And then I wanted to also say that in terms of education around the business model, I think it would be helpful to have even more. I know you've done a little bit more recently, Crystal, around educating folks around, it would take 200 projects to make this a viable, 200 projects annually to make this a viable business financial model. But, I'm certainly up to learn a little bit more myself, but then also help like strategize and problem solve around what could be viable financial model pathways moving forward. Because I think, that is something that appeals to me from a cooperative standpoint, that we can kind of act as a dual power entity, putting forward a different economic model right now today, even with the shitstorm that is, our current political power grab system.
Thanks for that, Erin. So you can see in chat, we got Colin giving you 100%, Erin. Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe I'm like taking this just from my perspective only, so I'll apologize if like it doesn't translate to everyone. But so I'm actually working in renewable energy now, and it's like going into it, I wasn't very excited, but like the idea of me going into it, I was like, I want to understand how they're making money and why it's going to why these projects are viable and feasible for these commercial entities. How come it can't translate to it working for us? And I haven't been able to get that because like it's so siloed. And it's been interesting in that way. And I'm like, oh, maybe I need to do more digging and just learning in general. But I just feel like just going back to like why we're revisiting this model and why we're transitioning away from like working within this structure that we're in. I think I feel like Crystal, you have like so much knowledge, you and Hannah, like I feel like there's something there that you guys both know of. And I feel like you guys share like really great resources, but like sharing more resources on like how we actually like rethink this whole structure that like how did we get to this structure that we're in now, and how do we get ourselves out of this this IOU structure, and like why are they able to make the money they are, and what are these things that we just need to understand how our finance and energy model work so that we can actually brainstorm solutions that are not extractive and going to this like just capitalistic structure. Yeah, I don't know, that was kind of a rant, but I think just like a foundation of like which resource can we trust to like really empower us to like learn in depth on like how all these things came about, and then being able to then dissect into like what are these solutions on. Yeah, and Erin, yes, I feel like Crystal shared many resources, and part of that is like me needing to read some of those resources. But are there other ways for us to learn besides, those guides that I feel like Crystal has shared before?
It makes me think about critical race theory. Like a lot of people probably ask very ignorant questions of like, why is it that people of color are low-income people? Why is it that like there's a very surface level question, but instead of directly answering those questions, we have to take the time to understand the critical race theory that racism is systemic and history repeats itself. So how do we, in order for us to actually answer those questions, can we make the time to really take a step back and understand the deep history of the critical race theory of our energy system? And then we can go back into like, okay, how do we move forward? Instead of trying to figure out how do we move forward? How do I make sure all of these brown and black kids get to go to college? I'm like, well, how about before we go there, why don't we understand the whole system of education system? What it was built for? What is the police system built for that felt like it was protecting some people, but it might not be for another group? Like, let's take a step back and create that space. Is what we're thinking that tools for transition will basically do. And oh my goodness, we're at time.
Yeah, we are at time. And thanks again for your question, Lisa, because I think that is a big question for a lot of folks. And as Crystal mentioned, it really is an intention of Tools for Transition to dive into that. So I'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you about how we ensure that it's accessible and not just turns into more articles being thrown at people that we don't actually have capacity to read. So yeah, thank you.
Great. So recognizing we're at the almost dinner time of Friday evening after a long week, first weekend of the year of the water tiger. We are crossing this exciting moment of our metamorphosis, turning into a monarch butterfly. And what we just did was the monarchs, I just learned this from Selena this week, that apparently monarchs live, why don't you share that, Selena? I'm just gonna butcher that.
Sure. So monarch butterflies, they actually travel alone, and they know their journey, not because anyone really told them, but because they have the ancestral wisdom, because when their butterfly mother, that's not a technical term, births them, the mother dies. So it really is passed down through the genes. So they're flying alone, and when they come together at night, that's really the only time that they are in community. And in the conversation that we had as owls earlier this week, I just thought that that was a nice anecdote and parallel to the ways in which we all operate. You know, we're all in our own nodes doing our work of movement building, that when we come together, we're able to provide shelter and also inspire us for tomorrow's journey and the future journeys to come. So I'm excited for our journey together. And thanks, Crystal and Hannah, for facilitating this meeting, for inspiring some ongoing dream space, and let's have a great 2022.
Before we leave, let's take a group photo, shall we? And I thought it would be really fun to take a group photo to be butterflies. However it might look like. I'm a butterfly. All right, 1, 2, 3. Ooh. Okay, one more.
Camera on my phone, so you'll have to just imagine me doing the butterfly thing.
Yes, it's definitely with us in spirit. And so great to see so many of y'all in faces. One last thing I want to share with you, just a screen, because you know we put a lot of hearts in all these slides. I don't know if you can tell. So many moments, it touched my heart so much, it makes me want to cry. So this is our closing slide of us as little Hannah and little Crystal here. And we're metamorphizing together as monarch going further. Would love to invite you all to continue our decentralized conversation on our People Power Owner Playground. I just drop in chat. I know it's been pretty silent since the beginning, but we really want to just create a space that we can all talk to each other instead of having to make sure we're all showing up on time and at the same time and all the logistical challenge. But if we can just be on a platform instead of clogging out on inboxes, this will be a lovely place. And thank you all so much for being here, spending your Friday evening together as a community, congregating as the butterflies, monarch butterflies. And we're going to have more coming forward. Hannah, do you have some last words?
Just gratitude. Yeah, thanks to everybody for showing up and continuing to. Yeah, this really is a metamorphosis for all of us. So appreciate everybody being here. And yeah, as Crystal said, the survey will be shared next week along with the slides and the recording, everything you might need to engage in the transition. We're trying to move slow, so we're not going to rush into it, and it'll be coming next week. Thanks, everybody.
I'm sucking some nectars.
I was wondering what that was about. Awesome.
Yes. I am supposed to play music. Yes.
Fully embodied the butterfly.
Wow. Oh, it looked like a chicken with a weird straw.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Happy Friday.